back to StoryTime with Eric Zimmer, where we last left off in the Mighty Dozen. The team was given the superpower antidote, starting with James and then the others. But we still have a few more issues to work out, namely between James and Carly. So let's see exactly how they settle it. So you ready? Alright, let's begin. Chapter 16, All is Forgiven. The next morning, Carly, Christy, Richard, Frank, Gary, Joey, and Pedro had recovered and were allowed to go and visit James before they checked out of the hospital. Reginald was not with them. Outside James's hospital room, Eddie, Peter, and Clara were waiting with all their belongings after Mayor Goodman dropped them off. She had allowed them to spend the night at her house. "Hey guys," said Carly, "how's James doing?" "He's asleep," said Peter, "but the nurse said we can see him as long as we don't crowd around him." "Where's Reggie?" asked Eddie as he counted their heads. "He's getting the cast on his leg removed," said Richard. "Apparently having superpowers helped heal his broken leg faster even after you gave us the antidote." "Will he be out soon?" asked Clara. "He'll be out soon," reassured Frank. "It shouldn't take long for them to remove a single leg cast." "Come on, dude," said Gary impatiently. "Let's go see James." Slowly and quietly, everybody went inside and closed the door behind them. Sure enough, James was sleeping peacefully in bed. The team was greatly relieved to see James back to normal again. Carly took a few steps closer, looking slightly timid. "James? Jimmy?" Carly's voice was so soft it shocked the others. Apparently, they weren't used to hearing Carly use this tone of voice. James slowly stirred, yawning and stretching. He opened his eyes, and when he saw Carly, they widened a little more. The entire team and the three kids smiled hopefully, except for Carly, who realized James was looking at her alone. She tried to look hopeful, but James's eyes narrowed, and, looking half angry, half sad, he turned over on his side and laid his head down on his pillow, unable to look at her. Carly hung her head as she realized James was still angry at her, and in all honesty, she couldn't blame him. She turned to the others. "Can I talk with him privately?" Realizing what was going on, the others were unsure of what to say, but Frank, Richard, and Christy, who were also angry at Carly, stared furiously down at her and shook their heads. It was really intimidating to Carly how tall they were in comparison. Without a word, Christy pointed towards James, indicating that Carly apologized to him. Carly tried to speak, but Christy cleared her throat angrily, which sounded like a growl. Sighing in defeat, Carly turned to James and went over to his bed. Frank gave her a little whack in the butt act to make her go faster, causing her to jump onto James's bed, startling him. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," muttered Frank. "That little diva." He smiled in satisfaction, but Richard and Christy looked at him disapprovingly. Carly stared angrily at Frank as she rubbed her butt. She then turned to James, who looked at her sadly with his eyes filling with tears as he laid back down on his pillow. Taking a deep breath and getting misty-eyed herself, Carly laid next to James and started gently stroking his head, like she always did to calm him down. His face softened a bit. "James, I'm sorry," said Carly in a sincere tone. "I'm so very sorry for everything. I'm sorry for all the times I yelled at you. I'm sorry for how angry and bitter I've been since Arthur died. That, along with the stress of our jobs and having been away from our family and friends in California, has been too much for me to handle. I miss them." James groaned sadly, but he nodded in agreement as tears filled his eyes again. "And I'm sorry for mocking you for your ridiculous appearance," Carly continued soothingly. "I'm sorry I haven't talked with you about each other's stress after work. And most of all, I'm sorry I haven't been there for you lately. It's just that Arthur had such an impact on our lives at the camp, and we were so close to him that when he died, it was like a piece of you and me died with him. I didn't stop to think that we still have each other. I was too butt blind to realize that sooner, and I'm sorry it's taking me this long to do so, and for turning you away like that. The others were speechless because none of them had ever seen Carly get this emotional. At least not like this. Even Frank was surprised at how sincere she was being. You don't deserve to be made fun of by anybody, not even me, said Carly gently. You're smart, talented, brave, loyal, fun-loving, strong, sexy, and I might add, have some sweet abs and one hell of a hunky body. James snorted, but Carly saw a little smile flicker on his face for a moment. And you know how I said Carly was always flattered by James's remarks? Well, likewise, he, James, was always flattered by Carly's compliments as well. The others, however, looked slightly uncomfortable hearing Carly say this. I really do mean it, said Carly soothingly. Despite how rocky our relationship has been lately, I don't want it to end ever. We've had too many fun times together for that. All those times at the camp and at school, swimming together, canoeing, hiking, sleeping out under the stars, making out under our football field's bleachers, smoking large cigars in our bubble bath jacuzzi tub. The list is endless. I've always had feelings for you ever since we were kids. And it's not just puppy love, as Donny Osmond put it. It's real love, as John Lennon put it. And everything I said about getting the hell out of our lives and wishing you were dead, I take it all back. Richie's right. Arthur may have brought us together at the camp, but you were the glue who held us together. And I can't imagine living my life without you. Carly began breathing more heavily as the others saw she was getting more and more emotional. Tears started streaming down her face. All those times you were there for me, to protect me, love me, and to bring a smile on my face tells me how caring, how selfless, and how noble you are. You're not like any other boy I've met, which is all the more reason why I realized I want to spend the rest of my life with you. But after everything that's happened, I suppose I ruined my chance of being with you, and that you don't want anything to do with me anymore. Yelling at you, insulting you, pushing you away. What the hell was I thinking? And I'm sorry for that too. Her voice became a lot more tearful. And if you can ever find it in your heart to forgive me, I promise I will treat you better, the way you deserve to be treated. Like a king. You know, since you've always treated me like a queen. Our teammate of friends is nothing without you. I'm nothing without you. And you were right, all along. I really am just a whiny little brat. I'm so sorry. I'm so very sorry for everything. She leaned closer and whispered into his ear. I love you, James Matthew Reitherman. Unknown to the others who were getting a little emotional themselves, James had become just as emotional as Carly was as her apology sank in. Leaning over, Carly kissed James on the cheek. Then as she turned to get off the bed, James sat up and gently grabbed her arm. Everybody held their breath as James and Carly looked tearfully at each other. There was a long silence. Without a word, James slowly leaned into Carly's face and kissed her passionately on the lips. Then he stared at Carly for another few seconds and gave her a big, watery smile. Gasping with delight, Carly tearfully smiled back and they flung their arms around each other. I love you too, Catherine Eleanor Nordberg, James whispered. "And I forgive you. In fact," he said a little louder, "I forgive all of you." The others were looking happily on to see their friends reconciling. Frank and Joey in particular were relieved that the tension between James and Carly was finally gone. They were completely unaware that Reginald, now with his cast off, had entered the room and had witnessed everything until he spoke up. "You were right, Richard. They really are a beautiful couple." Everybody turned in surprise. "Reggie, you're all better!" Gary cried. "Aye, laddie," said Reginald happily. "It feels great to be on 2 feet again." "And I'm sorry for all the nasty insults, everybody," said James sheepishly. "And I'm even sorrier my rampaging nearly cost you your lives. If Eddie, Peter, and Clara hadn't shown up at that moment, well..." But the others immediately forgave him and gave him their reassurances. "You didn't know what you were doing, Jimmy," said Richard. "None of us did. Our superpowers were never easy to control. And being the son of a doctor, I assume your superpower was affecting your brain and state of mind. We're just glad it's all over and you're all right." James sighed in relief. He and Carly held each other closely, but not hugging, as they played with each other's long hair. "I'm sorry I punched you in the stomach, Carly," said James. "Are you all right?" "Of course I am," said Carly, rubbing her stomach. "And I'm sorry I provoked you. You're not a whiny little brat. You never were, and you never will be. You're my one and only sweetheart. And one hell of a cheerleader." Carly chuckled. "And you're not a great big oafish brute either. You're the most wonderful person I've ever met. And the best player on the varsity baseball team. Looks like we have a lot to catch up on with everybody once we move back to California this summer." "Yeah, we sure do," said Carly seductively as she batted her eyes. "Dude, save it for the bedroom," said Gary, though he was slightly amused. Eddie, Peter, and Clara were hiding behind Frank, Richard, and Christy in case things got a little too suggestive for them. James and Carly both laughed. "Well, I'm glad everything's back to normal again," said Frank. "I admit it was very fun having superpowers, especially me having the power to levitate people. In all honesty, though, I feel like this whole thing with having powers was a curse." "That's what I initially thought when we got our powers, Frankie," said James. "Now, however, after everything we've just been through, I think this whole thing was a blessing in disguise."